Abdi, Abaloni, you have slides ready. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to say as we close out the session?
And I think we've talked about everything. The rest maybe we'll probably discuss it tomorrow when people are presenting their stories. So I guess we can go straight into the next presentation.
Yeah, so I guess then for follow-up, we could suggest that if you are going to submit a photo essay, again, a reminder that it can be 3 to 5 pictures or more if you want to, and you can send them to Mwangi. It's perhaps best to send it to Mwangi's email address, following what Didier had suggested, that sending it over WhatsApp diminishes the quality of the photos. But if you send it to Mwangi, then we'll figure out a way to present them tomorrow after 4 p.m. There's also consideration if you do want to have it sort of published either on the Twitter page to have as an outcome of the festival, or if you want to work on it and expand it into something else, that's very welcome. One idea that cropped up is that we could potentially use this initiative that Didier and Jean-Marie introduced to create something in the way of a photo blog series. So if anyone's really interested in taking this forward and recognizing that research can be presented in a multiplicity of formats, you can go ahead and speak to us further, and we can work to develop a photo blog on the new RLRH website and elsewhere. So it's a really good opportunity for publications for those of you that are interested in research as a next step.
Maybe to add that whenever I'm here, I'm available for consultation. So in case maybe you meet a barrier, it might be, my phone is not operating properly. Like, how do I, I'm here in case of anything. And yeah, and just so you know, some people have decided to write a poem with photos. So pull your socks up. Yeah. So some people have gone all the way. So just to spice up the competition. So.
So thank you very much, and it is good to be here, and I've been here since Monday, and actually today. So we'll be having a presentation, but it is just like the continuation of Didier and the one that Abdi present. So first, my name is Abuloni. My name is Abuloni Ukelo, and I'm actually Ethiopian refugee living in Riru. So I'm actually happy, and since Monday I've learned a lot of things from the presentation and from the group discussion. So right now, I think the first thing we need to do is to actually see because the topic is about filmmaking and converting research paper to video, or filming your research. That is, I will be going through in a few minutes, and then see how far we can go. Okay, every time we just watch a film, the first thing that we always ask ourselves is, what is film? And then people tend to give a lot of ambiguous word and very huge explanation to make sure that they explain the term film. But why don't we put film in a very simple word and see what it contains and what it's all about, and what is the simplest meanings of the film. Okay, so film, to me, film is a very simple thing, and it is a motion of picture or a moving of images on the screen. Okay, as Didier and Abdi explained a lot of things, it is not actually different too much, but this one now is the action, that the action of the picture on the screen moving, but it communicates an idea, it communicates a feeling, and it communicates something that is needed to be thought on, something that needed to be actually understood by any group of people. That is the simplest things. That is the simplest term of film. Maybe to hear from you guys, how do you, when in case you are asked what is film, how do you put it? How do you make it simple? And then, or how do you tell that person the meaning and the meaning of the definition of or what film is all about? So maybe one person, any thought of somebody, please.
I think for me, if you say you're filmmaking, I think you can, in a simple term, I can just say it's like a video. You're making a story within a video. For example, the movies we watch, the series, just a simple video. It's like a video. I'm making a video. It's like a film. Yeah, video.
I think a film is a set of images to pass a message across the audience or people who are watching.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. That's. Thank you. Okay. Any time we just come across a film, that film must be communicating very key messages to the people. Like, for instance, in the camp. There are a lot of agencies that works with the film, but Filmmate, who is the leading agencies, do this thing frequently. And then what most of the films they does is the health, malaria, and gender, and then child abuse and all these things. That's what they do. But at the end of the day, when they try to pass or when they gather a group of people to watch film, there are very key messages that they want people to learn from. Maybe the prevention methods and how or ways that you can protect yourselves. But I think that is not what we'll now be talking about. So we will be talking about how do we convert a research paper into film, or how do you? Okay, I know most of you might be having research. Even me, I've done my own research on repatriation as a durable solution. The refugees perspective of refugees on repatriations. I've actually done that research. And then when you wanted to do your, when in case maybe you have your research on with you, and then you are planning to convert your research to video, and what are the key essential steps that you're supposed to be following, and or what are the key things that you need to take up so that you do that practical part of converting the research. It might be two ways. One, you might be converting your research paper onto video, or a video that you have watched into a research paper. So there are these two ways. But I think, to us right now, the interest is how do we convert a research that you have done into videos. That is the simplest part that we need to do actually. I did a research of 36 to 40 pages, but it was converted to video for like 4 minutes and 23 seconds. It involved lot of things. It involved lot of work. So, but what shall we do, or what can we do for us to come up to do that kind of research, converting it? So, the first thing that you need to do first is to read through the document. Okay, you might be having your research, and a producer wanted to convert that research to the video. Maybe the first things that you can do is to share your research to the producer, and then now producer goes through it very critically and read it as many times as it possible, because if he doesn't read, he won't capture the movie or the films, or the movie or films will not bring out the contents or the themes of your research. So the first thing that the producer or yourself should do is to read very carefully, or you read the research paper as many times as possible for it to have something that to present. And then in every research, to my own experiences, when you are writing a research, you must be having some quotes within the research. So those key quotes, you need to pick them up and give it to producer, or you yourself need to understand fully about those the meaning and the meaning or the underlying meanings of those quotes. Then from there, I think every time we do research, we have observation, we have recommendation. So you as the researcher or or the person who is now shooting the film for you has to know the recommendation part, because the recommendation part every time it is the very important part in the research, because that is now where you have actually came up with the problems, and you know what kind of problems it is about, and then now you actually recommend the steps that's supposed to be done so that you solve or your research solve that kind of problems. So recommendation part is always is very important when you are now trying to convert your research paper to video. Then after you went through all these things, or after you actually read the research, you have picked up the quotes, and then you now know the recommendation part of the research paper. Then the last thing that you're supposed to do is to develop a script out of what you have actually done. So developing a script now comes in. How do you develop a script? So okay, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But then once you have once you have actually followed all these steps, then what will you do? Then the next step should now be you develop some few questions regarding some few questions from the research. And then the first question always is obvious: what is your name? If you are the one to be in the film. So because there are two ways you can actually do voiceover of the images being displayed, and then someone is actually voicing over what is being said, or you can actually be playing the real act on that movie to actually capture the themes of the research. So as we are actually doing that, the first question always that we will actually ask ourselves is for that person or you to introduce yourself. You actually came up, you introduce yourself, you just your name, and where you are coming from, and then the other one is like what actually what is the paper is all about. Okay, if now in case now you are talking about let's say in Kakuma. Okay, let's say the refugees living in Nairobi here, and then the refugees living in Kakuma are two different. They are two different people, because those one living in Nairobi are more exposed than those one living in Kakuma. So, what is the difference between these two people? Then now, if you actually, what is needed, if in case you are now trying to shoot or to convert that kind of research into video, the first thing that you need to know is what is in a very short term or briefly what is all about your research paper. Then actually you need to in few sentences you need to explain, and then people can understand, or the producer who is actually acting or producing the film can easily capture the whole themes of your research. Then to you now, like you as a researcher, in case now you are developing some few questions, what kind of question do you think are appropriate in terms of asking, or what do you think? What are the questions that is appropriate? Maybe one person to just give us some question that in case you bring up that question, the question will bring out the main key ideas of the research, which now need to be converted to videos. So I actually came out with the two questions. What is the first your name, and then the first one is like the brief introduction of your research paper. Then what do you think? What are the other questions? Maybe one person to give us one question so that we can actually proceed.
Anyone?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe like your outcomes or the effect that you want to pass to the audience concerning the research that you have done.
The impact. Yeah, sure. That okay. It is also yeah. I think that is also one of it. You need to know. Actually, you need to talk about the impact of your research. Okay, you have come up with your research. What will your research bring out? The output of the research, and then let's say you are talking about refugees issues in the camp. Then once you write that research, what will that impact be? So I think that is one of the question. That then proceeding to that, there is this part also, like what inspire you? You know, I was like mentioning that when you are now trying to, maybe you are shooting a films with the voiceover, and then you don't want, okay, when you are doing voiceover, you are seeing people, but they don't talk, but only one person talking is now voicing over what is happening around. So now, in relation to that, the very, very important part is to ask, like, what inspire you as a researcher to do this kind of research? So you might have known something that has generated your interest, and that is the reason why you have actually conducted that research. And then that is very important question always that we need to ask. And Didier is here, they can actually hurt, and Abdi is also there, they can actually hurt. They can step in and just also mention some few parts. And then, another question that we always need to ask when we are actually conducting research is when you went to the field and do the research, going to the field to do research, I think it's not something easier. You know that, it is a little bit challenging. And then the question is, when you went to do your research at the field, or maybe you went to Kakuma for a research, or you went to the DAB to conduct your research there, what were the challenges that you met there? You don't expect that by saying, I went to Kakuma, I went to the DAB, and then came back to Nairobi without having challenges. No. Wherever you go to do the research, you might have met with some few challenges. Then the question is, what were the challenges that you faced when you were outside in the field conducting your researches? So that is a very important question, which we always need to incorporate into when we are developing research questions. Not actually research question, when we are developing question for the films or question for research that need to be converted to film. That is the very important part. And then, I was actually doing my research, as I mentioned, about repatriation as durable solution. Do you know the reason why I did that research? I did that research because, when the issue of Come Closer came up, many people spoke about it. The government of Kenya spoke about it, UNHCR, though UNHCR did not speak much, but when you ask them, they don't say that we know this. But by then, Kakuma, especially the DAB, was pushed to go for repatriation, especially the Somali refugees, including the minority refugees in Dadaab. Then now, the term is voluntary repatriation. But now, when you come to the actual implementation of this voluntary repatriation, it is not voluntary repatriation. You are being forced to accept that repatriations by cutting water. That's one. And then, cutting, you don't have that opportunity to go for schooling. And then there is that term of voluntary repatriation, but now people were coerced into forcing it to accept. So that was my interest to actually go on and then do this research as voluntary research, voluntary repatriations. Then maybe you can just go down up to the slide. So those were the questions that I was talking about them, and then what was the most challenging? I've talked about the impact my sister there mentioned, which is very brilliant. And then now, lastly, always is what is needed for you to do, in case of anything that you wanted to add. So now, that was the research part. Then, what are the technical part of filming now? So, we have around 5 stages, but most importantly, we only have that 4. But the first one is supposed to be, developing the script. But, in pre-production, when you are actually preparing your script, or you are actually trying to go through the stage of filming, what the activity that you are actually doing in development, it will also actually comes under pre-production. So the question is, these are the 4 stages of filmmaking. Okay, then what is pre-production? What are the kind of things that we do under pre-production? Okay, pre-production normal. Okay, before I say so, I think we need to ask if there is somebody who can actually try. Maybe in case of anyone, would you have that heart to try what is pre-production is all about and say small thing, Didier? I think
maybe from even the word pre-production, but before even go there, because we are talking about stages of filmmaking. And in the words pre-production, there's that first, is it prefix or suffix? That one, pre.
Pre, yeah.
And it's something that you do before. Now, before production. And I guess it's what he was talking about. You've done your research, you have a hot topic, and you feel like it would make a good film. So he was taking you through the steps that you go through. And all those steps that he was mentioning, they're actually part of pre-production, like you developing your research and maybe summarizing your research and coming up with something that we call a synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
You all know what a synopsis is, right? Yeah, like even
yeah,
in
sure.
books and all that, it's just that short passage behind a book that summarizes the whole story. For like we've been talking throughout the workshop that not everyone has the time to go through, I don't know how many pages. So a synopsis is just something like a 1 page or half a page that explains everything in a nutshell. So with that, you have to make it so interesting and straightforward to the point.
Didier, in research, I think we call it abstract. Isn't it?
Okay.
Could it be abstract in research because abstract is bringing up everything that you're supposed to be talking about?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, in filming it's called synopsis. Yeah.
No, when it comes to film now,
Yeah,
it becomes a synopsis. So from there, because you doing the research, you've already done enough work. So you are approaching now a crew of filmmaking now that involves a lot of people, directors, scriptwriters, and from the synopsis, a scriptwriter can write up a whole story and a whole script. And with script now involves the dialogues and everything. So there's the scripts, there's also the storyboards. The storyboard now which involves the different shots that are supposed to be taken. So everything that you see in the movie, like whether it's a shot of someone's head, speaking, the establishment, all that is prepared before going to shoot. So there's that synopsis, there's the script and the storyboards. So the script has the dialogue. The storyboard has the shots, the images that are supposed to be captured. So it's something that you can either draw or even but it's better to draw and then maybe put some small captions there and the dialogue that is supposed to be spoken there. So I guess if I summarize the pre-production, that would be it. And now on the production bit of it, once you have a script and you have a storyboard, now the people that you find on the ground now are people who are supposed now to interpret those writings now into images. I know there's what we see, but then again, there's also a lot that goes on behind what you see on the screen. So what you see on the screen is the acting part of it, whereby people are acting. But then again, on the set itself, there's a lot of people there. There's the director which is in charge of that script to make sure that the script is well interpreted. While shooting, there's what we call director of photography. So that person is in charge of making sure that the shots are taken the way they're supposed to be taken. So it can be either him shooting or maybe him now directing the camera people. If he's the one to say, I want this particular shot, I want this shot, I want this, to make sure that all shots are taken. And then sure.
maybe when we are actually doing when we are converting research paper to videos, do we actually need having director addressing like art department and all these things?
Okay.
Does it important for us to have such kind of people in there in that kind of videos that we are trying to convert?
I think based on the kind of film that you want to make, it can either be fictional or it can be something that it is happening and you're capturing that particular thing happening. Like we've seen some documentaries here whereby I don't think there was any casting that was done there or scripting or anything like that. It's just a matter of, we're going to talk about this particular thing. It's important to plan what you want to just like research, you don't just write down everything that they tell you. You always have a topic that wants to be discussed and to go around it. Since we are talking about film, so sometimes your story can be told in a fiction way. People can act it. You can have a good story and get, you want it to be a movie. You want it to be a movie, one of those movies that you see and then they are written based on a true story or based on actual events that happened. So with that, there's a lot of, there are stages that are done, like casting and all that, like finding proper actors to represent the kind of personnel that you want to be represented in the film. And so there's that part of getting proper actors and also maybe getting also a crew to do it. But also other people which are involved are also designers and people who are in charge of wardrobe, because even the dressing matters a lot. And if you're talking about a story that happened in the 90s, so even the fashion itself has to be 90s. And then hairdressers, there are certain styles that people used to put back then that maybe we don't put now. It wouldn't make sense telling a story that happened in 1950s and the fashion and the hairstyle, they are 2022. So it doesn't add up. So to complement the story, there's a lot that has to be done. And there are a lot of people who are involved. Like I said, there's people who are in charge of wardrobe. There might be designers or stylists. There are people who are in charge of also makeup and cosmetics. And there are people who are also in charge of the sets, who are called set designers, whereby their work is to make sure that the establishment, if you're talking about the camp and you're not shooting in the camp, so how can we create our own camp or a set that depicts that particular story? So all those people are involved. And now on the set, yeah, they are very much involved there in terms of interpreting the story and depicting the story the way it is. I don't know.
Yeah, and actually, sometimes when you are trying to select characters, mainly what we do there is to, because we have main actor and then we have the other actor. The main actors are those who were given more responsibilities to do when they are actually playing on the screen. So how do we get those people? One, maybe we can get them through an interview. You just do sort of interview with them and then try to give them the responsibility. They try, they act. If they are okay with it, that's fine. If they are not fine with it, you just get another person who is now who can do that job much better than the first one. Yeah.
People usually hold auditions for that.
Yeah, sure.
And maybe you're given a certain scenario and you're told to act it. But sometimes there are moments whereby maybe they have a particular person in mind based on the character that they want. So sometimes it might be someone that is known, someone that they know this particular person will fit in this particular role, or sometimes they just go through auditions and see who performs it better.
Yeah, so basically the production part is now the actual shooting, what you actually mentioned.
Maybe what I can add on now during the production, like I was explaining the kind of people who are also involved. So the other things that that you should consider also during production in terms of costing, because there are also even caterers there. So production usually takes time, and a lot of time. So sometimes even a movie that you see for 45 minutes might have even taken months to shoot based on the story. Sometimes you have to move to different locations. So there are people who are in charge of locations. There are people who are in charge of offering foods. And others who are also there for, first aid purposes and stuff like that, because a lot can happen on sets. So there's a lot of people who are involved on the set that you don't get to see on the actual film. So maybe
sure. Yeah, thank you, Didier. Maybe the one thing I think we can try to ask the researcher or the groups is that when we actually shooting the film, there is this small clipboard that it's written some few details that they start saying, and then what is the importance of that clipboard? Maybe
one of the things that make production take time sometimes is because it's acting, and sometimes you need to take several takes, and sometimes you might be shooting a scene and then maybe a plane passes by and it makes noise, or just something happens. So they usually take a lot of cuts, and there's that thing that is called a clapper. I think you've seen it. It's in black and white, and it's written the name of the director there. So usually that one, they usually write, like I told you, that there are scenes that are prepared before even shooting on that storyboard. So maybe this is scene number so and so. But then again, now when people are editing later on, they need to know which clips you know, which scene is supposed to be in there. So, and they can't go through all videos. So that thing that they usually put there, is they usually write, this is scene number so and so, take this and this. So it's easier to refer to that while you're editing, and it makes your work easier. You don't have to go through all the videos to know which one fits here. So that one is usually, because they usually put it before shooting. It's called a clapper.
Yeah, sure. Maybe regarding this production and pre-production, if we can have some few questions, I think we can take, but maybe before Abdi comes in and we do some the other parts with him. So
before Abdi comes in, so like I told you, there's a lot of things that happen during the production, and you know, after now shooting all that, we move to the next step, which is called the now post-production. And as you understand the word post, it's what happens after. Now, we've gone to the sets, we've taken all those shots and everything, so what happens later on? And I guess that's what Abdi is here to talk to us about.
Yeah, so okay, what we are all talking about right now is the stage of making film, which is are very important. Like we mentioned, we said pre-production. Now we are talking about production, and there are key issues there that we always need to capture. And then now we'll now be talking about post-production, which we will actually share it with Abdi, maybe. Yes. And then sure. So
welcome, Abdi.
So the best part of the post-production that we always need to ask ourselves, what are the activities that we always do when it comes to post-production? And then because all these key steps all of them are very important. And then we don't need to miss that out. And then we always need to pay very careful attention when we are trying to go over each and every one of the steps. So Abdi, so maybe, sure. Yeah.
Thank you, and hi everyone again. So I'm here to talk about the post-production, but mostly what they are talking about here is called slate. So when you slate a scene, that's what it's called. You have to, it's called slate. So you have to make sure it's like claps. So the sound guy and also the camera will pick the sound. So when it comes now to this part where they do post-production, it means that the people involved here mostly are the editor and the director and also the production company. Because mostly you have the director's cut and also the company's cut, which can be different. So when it comes here, everything here, it depends with how the food was prepared in the kitchen. It depends with the pre-production and the production. Because if they didn't do it a very good job here, so it means that there will be a lot of mess here. So we'll have to go and reshoot that scene again. But mostly what you do is editing, and then you can change the text and the graphics, special effects, music selection or creation. If you have money, you can buy music, but if you don't, you can also hire someone who will create your sound according to the theme that you are doing. There are a lot of artists out here who can do that. Then you have now the voiceover or narration, depending with if you are doing the interview or you want someone else to narrate the story as it goes on. Then you'll have now, there's distribution. This one is, I think it's supposed to be up there because you have to trim everything and plan it, all of them in the scene. But in the production set, I think they miss one person who's called a special boy. What that person does is he makes sure everything in the memory card has been copied on the flash or on the hard drive. Because if you miss anything, it becomes now a problem because you can't repeat. Because you'll have to increase now the production cost. Because it's a lot of money when you are doing post-production. And the production people didn't do a very good job. And also, I think they were talking also about reenactment of, if you're doing a documentary mostly, and the person you want to interview may be at risk and doesn't want to show his or her face. So you can get an actor who will come and repeat everything that the person said as if you are interviewing that person, but it's not the real person. Are you getting me?
Yeah.
So I think that's all. And then we come now to distribution stroke marketing. So when you get to distribution, you have to come to marketing first, then the film gets distributed. So in that you have to bring, like, you have to have designs of the posters and the trailer of the movie, and look for a good company that does distribution. And mostly it depends with, there are a lot of, when you go to distribution companies, their cost. Some will tell you they'll get 35% of the sale. Someone will take you, they'll take 50-50. All the other person will just tell you he'll get royalties. So royalties means that any income that the film brings, he'll have a cut. Up to, like, maybe when he dies or something. It can also continue even if he dies, because they are next of kin. Yeah. So until maybe the film doesn't get any income. That's all that it depends with now from the distribution stroke marketing. So you have,
yeah. So distribution is now when the contents or the key themes that you have actually acted over, then people to see. I think it is also the same like when once you have your research paper, and then you have to look for a way that your research will reach to people. Like maybe to how will your research reach to other people? That is for them to read and see and then recommend, or for UNHCR to see and know what you have actually talked about. It is the same like how we distribute the films that you have actually acted. Yeah.
So there are different ways. One is the company that helps you to distribute. The other one is social media, which you can use on your own and try to distribute. And you can use bloggers who will come and maybe make your film trend. And then there is also community screenings. You can go and do community screenings or theaters according to your budget.
Yeah, I think community screening is the most important part, because okay, before community screening, I think in our cases we have a group called advisory committee. This advisory committee are a committee who will actually sit down and see what the first time, and then now if they need to recommend some few things from the film, they can do it. If they actually say that the film is fine, you can go on and do that screening. You go now, you take the screen to the communities, you call, the first thing I think you need to do is you call the actors, then those who acted in the film, then from there they watch themselves. Then from there, I think it will be now more easy for you to reach to other people, because these actors who have watched the film will proud that we are there, and the community themselves will have that kind of proud, because they were a part of the conversations. Maybe Jackie, you can add something. Yes.
So for us in research, as far as community screenings are concerned, as a way of dissemination of our outputs, is that what you need to keep in mind is that you need to take back your research to the communities that you took the knowledge or data from. And so for us, that's the first step of research, not mostly money-oriented, but just trying to validate your findings. So what we have done in the past is that once we have completed the editing phase and we have the final production, we take it back to the community in which we collected data from. So mostly it's usually where the actors come from themselves.
Yeah, sure.
So you'll find that communities will appreciate seeing one of their own in such a production. And so you'll have sort of like a robust conversation around whatever research you are conducting. Say if you're talking about teenage pregnancies and the effects of that within society, etc. So what we do is also bring on board, say, the local leaders, say the Nyumba Kumi leaders. We'll have the actors, general community, and this is all organized by the production team in conjunction with the community members. And so once they see the production, then we'll have sort of like a Q&A session. This is where we validate our findings. So you'll find sometimes communities will not completely agree with the research, as you have reflected it. And so they'll tell you, okay, fine, maybe you need to do A, B, C, either edit it further or remove these parts, or, good job, please do this in future. And so once that step is done, I guess that's when you can now go and show other audiences, broader audiences, and maybe also try and cash in from the production. So for us, and I think this is like the critical part in research, is ensuring that you validate your findings with the communities in which you take your data from, just to ensure that you have it right, in a sense.
Yeah, maybe Jackie, before you hand over the microphone to Abdi, so maybe the something that you need to talk about is that how do you come to know that the things or the topic that you mentioned on the research or the things that you talked about on film has changed people? How will you know the feedback? Is there ways that people can now sit down and say, okay, we talked about early marriage, but right now where we are, we have actually improved. From 20, right now it has reduced to 5. So is there any system that we can actually know, even at the research perspective or at the video or film perspective?
So during the community screenings, even as we're screening that particular production, what we do is also have like side questions. They're called like vox pops. So what vox pops are, they're like key informant interviews that you hold on the side as the event is going on, or even after the event. And so those ones will help you answer those questions. And so it's not only about everyone being in the hall and watching that, so we'll have other documenters trying to get people's sentiments as far as then how to improve on research.
So thank you. Yeah, Abdi, maybe in case if you have something you can say, then we can actually, in few minutes time, we open some few questions, then we talk and, yeah, maybe.
I think we could just go to questions.
Yeah. Questions. Okay, let's open the floor for all of us, and then maybe in case you want to add additional something, or you have a very, essential question that you need to ask, you can ask, and then we see how we can contribute, and then, yeah.
Yeah, so, Now, are these actors paid from the community? So that's the first one. Like once you select your cast, so when are they paid? Is it during the or after the film has generated something? So like just thinking about it being out there and also being showcased in different places. Also, YouTube nowadays has that. How do you call it, subscription and advertisements that could go to your video and then you get something out of it. So who gets the credit after all that? Like, does it go straight to the researcher, or those benefits keep trickling down to the cast, especially the community that participated in the whole production process? And then maybe something that can be cleared on my end is using pictures, like just pictures and narrations, and not necessarily like doing a video recording. So like what are the technicalities around that? Because like you have so many photos and you want to use them to communicate your research, other than the casting, like the slate and all.
Yeah, maybe sure. Before actually Didier get times to respond, I think what you are mentioning, Didier, is photoplay when you put all the photos together and then now you start narration and then. Yeah, that is it. So maybe to try the first question that you asked, I think it is a very important question. To my understanding, and to my experience, we actually involved in some few of these things sometimes back, and then what we do mostly is you don't pay actors before the actual activity, because from the experiences, you may pay somebody right now before the actual work done, and then it disappear. And then, so for us to to avoid and put some restriction, the things that we do is okay, you sign a contract with that person, then you take the consent. From there, you start the process until mostly they are paid after the the film is actually done. Yeah, maybe
maybe to add on what Baloni said, in terms of being compensated, it also again depends on what kind of film we are talking about, because there are those films like, let's take an example, the film that we saw on the first day, the first evening here. So it was more of documenting someone's story. So with that, it all depends with the kind of agreement that you've had with that particular person. But mostly, for that one, mostly there's no compensation, most of the times. But there are agreements on how far the documentary can go in terms of earning money and generating an income. But usually for films or for movies, actors are paid. So acting is a career. So when you're thinking of creating a movie, think of budgets. And in that budget, also the salary of actors is also included. Same way you render a service and you're paid for it. So acting itself, it's a career. So it can be a one-off kind of deal whereby they come, they do their part, and then you pay them and they go. It doesn't matter whatever you do with the film or how far the film goes, whether your film is on Netflix. So it all depends, and other scenarios, maybe it depends with the kind of agreement that you have. Maybe you decide that, okay, I don't want to be paid, but I want maybe a certain percentage of the income of that particular project. So if maybe, let's say, like your shares are 1%, if it generates something, maybe all the time, maybe for a certain period of time, maybe it's a 2-year contract kind of deal, whereby whenever it gains something, you also gain something. I don't know whether I've answered you on that compensation part. And the third part was, how do you make a film when you have photos? I think you've seen documentaries that talk about past events that happened, and I guess even with photos, you can film itself. The word film comes from that. You remember those cameras that we used to use back then that had film, and film was small images that are put together. Same as the word movie comes from moving images. So either way, it's still images. Even a video is made up of a lot of images which play at the same, very fast. So to the point that you see something moving, but those are different images that are put together. So with that, you can use the style of a slideshow, whereby maybe there's a voice narrating whatever is happening and putting photos, or it can even be you being seen narrating, but then again having some cutaways. You see, we will watch whereby someone is talking about something and then there's a photo passing in the screen. So it doesn't matter whether you have a video or not. Even with images, you can make a film. And you can still even make a film without images, whereby maybe you're capturing videos of people just talking or narrating stories.
Then maybe the last one, that who gets credit? Is it the producer, the actors,
who gets
then
credit?
The credits now?
I think you've seen after the end of every movie, there's usually a lot of names that pass there. So that's one way of crediting everyone with everything that they've done, from the set designer, from the one who provided food, one who provided transport, all the drivers, like everyone who was involved in that particular film. And I think with that, you can tell how much employment films generate, because that's one way of crediting people. And aside that, everyone is paid to do whatever they're supposed to be doing there. Even the crowd that you see, maybe a particular person is talking and then there's a crowd there. So even those ones are paid. Those ones are extras and they are paid. In terms of who take credits of the movie, so sometimes it's mostly the director, or even the person who came up with the story, or even the person who came up with the idea. Okay. So mainly the first credit goes to the person who came up with the idea of making that film.
It's okay. Yeah.
Is it okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So so it depends, but mainly it's the person who came up with the idea, and it can be your film and you're not the one who wrote it. You know, you have an idea, you bring people together, they create something, but most of the times the director takes the credits, because the director is the one who puts everything together. You know, he's the one who coordinates the person who will write the scripts or the synopsis to the ones who will shoot it. He's the one who sees through the whole production. But everyone gets credit to what they've done in the movie. And by credit, there's that credit that you see being mentioned and being acknowledged for what you did, and also in terms of also compensation as well. So it all depends with the kind of agreements that you've had. Sometimes you can buy someone's story and it becomes yours, just because you've even bought the rights of that particular story from that particular person.
Yeah, I think let's pick one or two, then we can.
More questions.
The time is not. Yeah, maybe one or two. If you have one, fine. If you don't have, I think we are ready to.
There's a time I've seen captions running or subtitles. How do you do that? And what would be the advantage of having that?
Yeah, so you just start here, then I can help.
So for captioning, most of the time is to capture the real story, and maybe putting a stamp on it in terms of emotions, in terms of how people express themselves. So with captioning, sometimes you have a Kenyan movie. Maybe people are talking in Swahili or another language that people understand. And you don't want to take that away, that originality aspect of it. So maybe in terms of reaching out to a wider audience, because it's not only Kenyans maybe who watch that particular film. You want people in America, people in Europe to also watch. So with that, maybe you can put captioning in different languages, or sometimes even just captioning the same thing that they're saying, because sometimes with the accents, people can have a hard time understanding what someone is saying. But when you read the caption, at least it becomes easier, because whatever is written in the caption, it's the normal English that anyone can understand. Yeah, because with writing, you can't read someone's accent.
Yeah. Actually, what Didier is mentioned, I think that is it. That is all about. Because let me take for an example the camp setup. In the camps there are a lot of nationalities, and people are not using the same language. So whatever films that people produce there, they mainly do caption and at the age of the TV there. So that is very important, because we wanted to give everyone the right to have the information. So we don't want people me, I don't know what is happening. So yeah.
It's a way of reaching out to a wider audience, and to make it easier for people to understand. And that happens during now editing. Yeah,
that is at the post-production, isn't it?
Yeah, post-production while you're editing now the film.
Okay. So maybe we can. Is there any other? Is there anyone with the questions? We take one that one, the last one, then we can. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. So in terms of music, do you put any type of music, or you choose a specific music for a specific movie? And in terms of, I think, the terms of A-roll and B-roll, how important is it in terms of research?
Music which is not relevant to the contents of the research or to the contents of the video. So whatever key messages that you are, or the key ideas that you are bringing out from that video, you have to look for the music that goes along. You have to look for a music that goes together with the message that is being said in the TV. So that is basically what is there. So maybe you can actually add and see.
Maybe to add on that, the music aspects of a film also depends on the emotions and the emotions that you want to portray. And it's mostly recommended to use instrumentals, just to not to disrupt. Like if someone is singing and then someone else is talking, and it kind of distracts people. Music is a very important thing in film, because try to watch a movie without sounds. Like there's a momentum that music creates. When you see someone walking, and then you do like, okay, so what's going to happen here? So use rock music, and the reason why they use rock, because with rock there's soft rock, And then there's that hard metal, whereby if it's a hardcore scene whereby something hard is needed, it's there. If it's something soft, but it mostly goes with the kind of emotions that you're trying to portray. So certain sounds can make you emotional, even without looking at something. So music is very important, and you don't just take any music that you want and put it there. If you're going to put someone's song, like Abdi had said, you have to consult them. Or maybe some movies goes to the extent of either hiring a whole producer and singers to create a whole album for that particular movie, or maybe just an instrumental, like some producer to just produce music, and it can only be just instrumentals. And so still goes, you need to consult the artist of the music, and the kind of music that you put has to go in line with the kind of emotions that you want to portray, because music plays so much into the emotions part, and it also leads the story.
The music is live, yeah. Maybe Abdi wanted to say something, then we can,
I think your second question, the importance of B-rolls and aerial shots. The importance is that when you're trying to show people maybe your film, it is too boring when you're just showing one person talking, like the interview of just one person. So you have to show them the surrounding area and the person's activities. So that adds more information about this person's life, like what he does, maybe from the morning he wakes up to maybe when at the end of the day, all the activities. That's the importance of the B-rolls and aerial shots.
I think with that, we wanted to, if there is no any other
maybe to add something on what Abdi said. You see, with research, maybe the reason why even film is important is because, and when you put those different shots, you see, with research, you have to, if maybe you are doing a research about the camp, you need to narrate everything about the camp, the environment, trying to explain to someone the setup. But now, when you just put that area shot of the camp, like it's self-explanatory, you don't need to explain that part. You've already summarized that. You go just straight to the story of the person who's speaking, but then again, you've seen the environment that they come from, you've seen, and when someone is talking about what they do on a daily, it's easier now to put in a shot of them maybe doing that particular. It makes things easier to understand because it's self-explanatory. It's itself.
So I think with that, if there is no any other burning question, maybe is there any additional things that you want to add, or Jackie, maybe we can actually end there. So maybe to emphasize on why film is important. I think for film there's no limit on how long it's supposed to be. Your film can even be 4 minutes long. Or 1 minute. Or even 1 minute. And I feel like it would be the best way to present your research. Like in a short format and in a very interesting way. So if you can capture like your 50 pages in a clip of like 2 to 3 minutes, and I think it would be an easier way to push your research. Because this time around people are like thinking about their time. They don't want like to spend 1 hour, 3 hours on a certain paper reading, and then so the simplest way you can do is to actually convert your research for like 1 minute, 2 minutes. Then that person will actually give, because we are living in a busy world. So most of the people are busy, and then unless you approach him with
and you might think that maybe shooting and everything might take time. Like he was suggesting, you can even use photos. You can go around, take photos, and just small captions to summarize your whole research. And it would be an easier way to present it, and a very interesting way to present your research.
Sure. I think with that, if there is no any other burning thing like question, I think we would like to actually reach to the end of our presentation. And then before that, we wanted to thank Didier and like the group who try their best to put the presentation together, and then actually you who have actually given your time until the end of the presentation. So thank you very much. And then we also appreciate the the people at these institutions who are actually working hard for us as the refugees. Because, like, my thinking is, most of the people who are managing this center are refugees. I don't know. That is my, what, because I saw Phony, she's actually, one thing I need to know before I hand up, when I went back last night I was inside the Bolt, I was like thinking, the difference between Phony and then the difference between Phony and Alima who is living in Dadaab or Alima who is living in Kakuma. There is too much differences. Phony had actually gone far, but she is refugees. How did she reach to that stage? That is the best experience we wanted to share with other people who are not in this room, and then let's encourage our brothers and sisters who are at the back so that they also take the front seat. So thank you very much. So let me just end there. Asante sana.